to another episode of E&Ftv's Bridging the Gap. And today I'm joined by Madeleine Tye, Group Director of Sales and Revenue. Madeleine, good morning. How are you?
Hi Jason, how are you?
Fantastic. Yeah. Are you good?
Yeah, very well. Enjoying the sunshine as it's been these last few weeks. It's been great to see. Put spring in our steps, as they say.
You're a little further south than I am, but it's got quite cool in the north this morning in South Yorkshire. I'm like, yeah, just said to my son, are you cold? He was like, I am a bit. So it's just like, but I know that if I put the central heating on, this office that I film from will be like a sauna, so I'm avoiding that.
Yeah,
Put a jumper on maybe.
yeah,
But thank you
layer up.
so much. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, let's kick off. So I love to ask five random quick fire questions that come into my head about 5 minutes before we hit record, to enable the audience to find out a little bit more about you. So if it's all right with you, we'll start with that. So where's your happy place?
Oh, I have several happy places. Selfish, I know, but I think some of those are. I have two Springer Spaniels, so one of my happy places is out in the fresh air with them. I enjoy gardening, but I am fair weathered. So I enjoy it from March to September, and then I lock the greenhouse up and leave it and don't look at it until March again. But that's one of my happy places as well.
So you're outdoorsy then?
I'm not sporty, but I do like to be outdoors.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely fine. I, I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I look, we live about 30 minutes away from the edge of the Peak District.
Mm,
And last night was just get in the car, go out there and do some running and
yeah.
yeah, so calming, just yeah, nature. So I'm absolutely with you on
Yeah, there's
that.
nothing better of a morning is particularly when it's a cold morning is just getting out with the dogs, recessing what the day is going to look like,
Yeah,
clearing the head, blowing away the cobwebs. It's really good for the mind.
yeah, absolutely with you on that. What's your go-to midweek dinner?
Oh, now that's an interesting one because we have that debate in the house quite often. Um, being third generation Italian, I have to have at least one night a week where there is pasta involved. So I would say that that is one of my go-to midweek dinners for sure.
Yeah, same, same. I think spaghetti bolognese is a pretty. I
Yeah,
think the English have claimed it now as a staple kind of midweek dinner. It's more English than it is Italian, I think.
yeah, no, no. But the English don't. They cook it there and then, and it has to be cooked properly over a couple of hours, if not days.
You know more than us.
Allegedly.
Would you rather have slow internet or constantly forget your passwords?
Oh, constantly forget my passwords. Easier to rectify. Slow internet, nothing worse.
What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, concert. I wouldn't say it was the best, but the most recent one I went to was I went with two of my friends to Cardiff Castle to see Blondie.
Ah, brilliant.
Random, showing my age, but yeah, it was an open air concert, lovely day, evening. Yeah, was good.
Good, sounds
Enjoyed
bliss.
that.
I used to go to so many concerts when I was younger. Fewer these days. Went to earlier this year and last year, but before that must be 10, 15 years before I've been to anything showing
Mm.
my age as well. What three items would you take to a desert island with you?
Oh, three items. Moisturizer. I think I would take my phone.
Moisturizer, you said that before the phone. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's nothing worse than feeling sort of, particularly on a desert island. You want to make sure that you're keeping your skin sore.
Priorities.
Priorities, and I'd take the spaniels.
Yeah. Well, technically that's four, but I'll let you off. I can put your moisturizer. Yeah, we can hide that in the case somewhere. Brilliant. Some interesting answers there. and found out a little bit more about you, third generation Italian. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. As I say, thanks for coming on the show. Tell us, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your career so far, Madeline.
So, I've been in the hospitality industry for getting on for 30 years. I originally did my diploma in leisure and tourism, not hotel and catering, which was quite interesting. Having left college, I then migrated to hotels. Um, Various reasons for that. Probably because one of my lecturers told me not to. So I thought, why not? I'll do that. And secondly, I think as much as I was keen to do the usual path of travel rep, hair hostess, that sort of thing, cabin crew, that sort of thing, I thought at that point, that's great, but in 10 years' time, where will I be? And I felt that hotels would give me that path into developing a career. So I started off, as most people do, in front of house. In those days, the reception was very manual. We had no electronic keys. Reservations were done through a fax. So it was very hands-on. It was very, very much reception, conference, events, mice, reservations, groups, that sort of thing. And then I then decided that whilst the path of hotel conference sales was my passion, I wanted to learn about operations. So for my sins, I did 12 months ops, which included 3 months commie chef in the kitchen, which is 3 months of my life. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever get back. But I did learn a lot. And it was very interesting being in a kitchen with, particularly when you've been a receptionist, to then be put in the kitchen with the chefs was a very interesting concept. But it does teach you how to be resilient, I can tell you.
And weirdly, I did exactly the same. I did an 18-month trainee management where I went
Yes.
from, six, I think I did 6 months in F&B and 6 months in
Mm.
reception and 3 months in kitchen. Nothing prepares you for
No, no,
that.
no, it doesn't. And every department you go into, the head of department tells you that they work the hardest.
Yeah.
You know,
I think a housekeeper have got that nailed down.
yeah.
That's
So
labor.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so and then from there migrated into conference and event sales, both hotel and then independent venues. And then from there, I then went to Hilton, where I did regional sales manager for a number of years. And then I did outbound leisure. So I took my leisure experience, took some use out my leisure degree, and went and worked for Hilton doing outbound leisure, looking after the tour operators, selling the big resort hotels, which was fabulous. Really enjoyed that for a couple of years. And then went into back to corporate, into regional director of sales roles, and developed my managerial, my sales development and commerciality through those years.
Fantastic. Looking back, did you always want to work in hospitality? When was that love born?
Um, I've often thought about this, and it's interesting because my first job at 16 was in hospitality. It was in a fast food restaurant, but I loved it, and I think that really probably started that seed off around where do I want to go and what do I want to do. I was never particularly school academic. So I was more of a kind of practical, learn on the job kind of person. Um, and I quite enjoy having fun. So I wanted something that brought all that kind of experience and enabled me to kind of be that person within that environment.
So you went on to do travel and tourism, leisure and tourism at college.
Yeah.
Did you go on to university or did you get straight stuck
No,
into the world of work after college?
stuck into the world of work after college.
Okay, brilliant. I just want to touch on something I saw on LinkedIn on your CV, which was your 12 months in contract catering. How was that? I've got friends in that industry. How did you find that? Was it vastly different or?
No, the contract catering side was actually for their event side of the business. So it was really keeping within what I already knew and working for their events, selling their conference and event side. So I didn't really get involved necessarily in their, I guess, outsourcing or contract catering as you and I would know it, the schools, that the offices, that that the implant catering side, it was for events.
Right, okay, fantastic. I just stuck out on your LinkedIn profile as something kind
Mm.
of a little bit different to, the normal kind of trajectory through
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah. Well, I'd actually gone back. I worked for Redcliffe Catering a number of years before in their events in their Birmingham, when they had the Birmingham Botanical Gardens. So when I was being made redundant from City and Mint hotels, the MD approached me and asked me if I would come back and support them with a short term project to try and redevelop and grow their business back. So that's where that 12-month contract came in.
And you referenced you really enjoyed your time at Hilton
Yeah,
at
I
that
did.
time.
Yeah, I
Talk us
did.
a little Talk a little bit about kind of what you learned from work, because obviously you've done a little bit of smaller companies, independent, you've worked for big brands. Talk us a little bit about what your experience was at Hilton was like.
It was it was excellent. Hilton really took me from that junior first set hotel sales manager role and developed me into what into that steps within the career within my career. And I can remember always being told during my induction with Hilton, you either stay for a week or you stay for 6+ years. And
Yeah.
um, I think leaving Hilton was a tough decision. Um, at the time I was ready for another, for my next step, and Hilton didn't have that step at that time for me. And I think that was the only reason. Had the right role come along, I would have stayed with Hilton and probably still be with them now. My ex colleagues are still there today, that I keep very much in touch with. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Hilton. I was really given the opportunity to develop and grow, and the leisure account manager role was actually a good example of that, because I took that role to develop my high level account management skills.
Would you advise everyone to get that expert, everyone in hospitality, given students coming into the game, would you advise them to get that exposure to big brand under the belt before kind of moving on to other things?
Yeah, I think it was important, and I'm glad that I did the independent bit first, just because that was the way it kind of flipped around. But yeah, 100%. I think getting in with the big brands that have these training academies, that have got these development programs, and in fact, some of the management companies today offer exactly the same. They offer this development too. New salespeople or revenue people or marketing people join in the industry. So I think that would be my advice: is find a company, whether it's a brand or whether it's a well-established hotel management company, and see what opportunities they are to develop and learn and grow within those organizations.
What was the transition from independent to big brand? Talk us through some of those changes.
Um, it was um, it was definitely an eye opener, particularly as not only was I transitioning from an independent, but I was transitioning from a role that was solely conference and event sales into a hotel sales manager role. So not only did I have to learn, shall I say, the ways of working and the intricacies of working for a big global brand, I also had to learn a new role, I had to learn, what hotel room bedroom sales, and that was alien to me at that point. I had to learn about RevPAR and ADR and all these different buzzwords that we use that are essential to securing that hotel sales piece. And yeah, again, I had a really great director of sales that developed and grew me through that path to eventually take me on from one hotel to two hotels within that region.
Was it
And
that
I
kind
won
of,
sales manager of the year 1 year for the region.
hey, brilliant. Well done, you.
Yeah, yeah. So I started off as the junior, and there were times I think in the beginning when I think both sides must have thought, "What the hell have we done here?" But yeah, then it all slotted into place, and I felt that then I was I was able to shine and develop.
Was it that big brand exposure that initially got you interested in revenue management? You referenced RevPAR a minute ago. Was it then that you had that first kind of exposure to RM?
I would say so, yes. I think, revenue management and sales is still very deemed as a very different beast. And I think, when we spoke previously, revenue management isn't my primary skill. But what I have learned through developing myself through many different roles and many different experiences working with some great people is I've learned that commerciality piece. So I think in order to, and in my previous role, I oversaw revenue and sales. And I think being commercial is what enabled me to do that successfully.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I'd love to find out a little bit more about kind of how you transitioned from, because I did the same. I was in hotel sales, albeit in independence for years and years and years, and then kind of found myself having more and more revenue management responsibilities. But I
Yeah.
physically had to go away and do a hospice course for 18 months and learn that side of it. The two things demand different skills. How did you kind of manage that transition? How did you learn the core skills of it when you were in a sales position?
I think during my time with Interstate, I was very much exposed to commercial team, and I learned a lot from them. I think I can be a bit of a sponge, and I do take stuff in and store it somewhere in the back of my mind. And I think that enabled me to really kind of take a lot of skills with me. Also, just keeping on top of reading forums, just reading, things on LinkedIn, watching people do podcasts, enabled me really to kind of learn from other people. And from there, joining ProArc, being thrown straight into the deep end of having to manage the revenue team was was very, very interesting. And I think what I learned through that journey was that I am analytical, and where I can see the gaps enables me to be able to direct the revenue managers to act, to do what needs to be done to close that revenue gap, but also to form a strategic plan that allows the sales team to find the business that fits that jigsaw correctly. And I think being sitting in both roles enables you to kind of have that holistic view, rather than just saying, right, sales, this is where we're going after and this is what needs to be done, and the revenue saying, but that isn't going to fit our business, that's not going to achieve our budget, that's not going to achieve our RevPAR and so on and so forth, or our market share. So I think being able to sit there and look at both sides and be able to bring the two together was something that I enjoyed and felt very valuable in doing so.
Do you feel like the skills that you learned through your long career in sales helped you transition into revenue
100%.
somewhat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think yeah, you have to be yeah, I think to be a good salesperson, absolutely, you've got to have all the attributes of being a hunter and agile, and you know, all those other fire in your belly and all those other cliches that you hear. 100%, you've got to have that, but you've also got to understand the impact and what you're going after, and whether that is the right business for that time, for that hotel or that venue.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I certainly found that the skills that I honed in sales helped me. The communication, the kind of ability to, I suppose, see all of the business and recognize the opportunities that could be gleaned from simply standing on reception and watching an
Yeah,
interaction between a receptionist and someone checking in, and
yeah,
then going away and finding upsell opportunities potentially. Um, those skills of, going and sitting with chef and the inquisitive nature you have in sales, and, what do you pay for that? What do you sell it at? What are the margins on that? And how many, that total revenue management
yeah.
was, for me, was totally helped by the skills that I learned in sales. So although it's not a common route into revenue management, I think it can be an effective one for the right person.
No, absolutely. And I think you hit a really good point there about understanding the cost. The cost of acquisition is so important nowadays, more and more so with rising costs to run business, and particularly within the food and beverage and hospitality industry. And I think understanding as well the impact of the business that you're bringing in and the cost of acquisition to that business. And
Yeah.
more now it costs us to bring business in. You know, so to be able to go and find or direct the team to find that piece of business that comes with a lower cost or no cost of acquisition is excellent. There's less of that around, but it's still there. You just have to hunt harder for it. But I think in understanding the business that you're bringing in and the impact it has on the bottom line is key. And don't get me wrong, you know, we've made mistakes along the way where we've perhaps taken business and driven a volume strategy over a rate strategy, and on paper at the top line it looks good, but on the bottom line it doesn't look good at all. So it's reverting and understanding and taking learnings from that and saying, actually, you know, was that the right strategy? What was the cost? What implications did it have on the bottom line?
I think the sales skills definitely kind of help with all that, underpinned by soft skills. And I think we've joked about doing our 3 months in the kitchen, but I certainly look back and see working in every department in the hotel is invaluable,
Mm.
and certainly helped me in my career, both in sales and revenue. Would you kind of agree with that from your side of the
Yeah.
fence?
Yeah, 100%. I think, and that was the reason I decided to actually do the 12-18 month management training, was because I felt before I went into sales and sold an event, I needed to understand the mechanics behind that. And I can remember, you know, a funny story, but quite key to my career development was I was sat on reception one day and the food and beverage manager came in and she said to me, how many covers did we have in the restaurant last night? And I just looked at her blank and, you know, young 20 something, and said to her, I don't know how many tablecloths we used last night. And she just went, typical receptionist, and walked off. And I thought to myself, okay, if I'm gonna succeed in event sales, I need to understand what goes on operationally. And that was
Yeah.
why I took that time to do the operation side before I went into a sales role. So I understood what was being asked, and whether it was logistically correct or not.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Exactly the same with me. I think that all-round holistic knowledge of hotel operations would help you. That cross-departmental know-how would help you whatever position you were in, because it's an understanding of how what you do impacts upon the other cogs in the machine, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it you know, it helps you. It's again, it's another skill, it's another understanding. It's you know, it helps you develop, I think, and have that 360-degree approach to the business. And don't get me wrong, operations have changed a lot since the last, since I was doing them. You know, conference portal, we were setting up an overhead projector and screen. Nowadays it's much more tech savvy, but I think the basics are there. And and
Yeah,
I think the basics, the same with sales and revenue. Yes, we should be continuously evolving and re-educating and looking at what the next trend is, or staying current. But actually, sometimes going back to basics is just as important. And I think the pandemic taught us that. I think we had to go back to basic sales, and those salespeople that had that knowledge were the ones that survived, I think, the pandemic. We did see a lot of salespeople say, this isn't for me, when
yeah,
all
yeah,
the tools and luxuries were taken away. And we didn't even have booking.com at one point, selling our rooms. It was boots on the ground, identifying business that
yeah,
would come into our hotels at that time.
yeah. Lowest cost of acquisition is always someone booking over the phone or walking in, or someone extending a stay at the desk.
Yeah,
As pandemic kind of took us back to the fundamentals, didn't it really?
yeah,
And I suppose everyone had to be a little bit creative, and,
yeah,
think on the feet of ways that you could keep the doors open.
yeah,
Leave
totally.
us with a couple of tips for students graduating this year or next, and considering embarking on a career in hospitality commercial, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, of course. I think if you are wanting to take the path of a role within sales, revenue, marketing, within that commercial um, landscape within hospitality, I think it's exciting. It opens up a lot of opportunities. It's hard work. I think in order to do it, you've got to be agile. You've got to be somebody that can both be a team player but also an individual, that you're not afraid to kind of work on your own, because I think empowerment is really important. You've got to get that balance right of being able to kind of think on your feet, because it's not always easy. Whilst as a leader, we are always there to spend time. And one of the things I enjoy doing the most is developing and taking junior newcomers on a journey. But then also needs to be an element of being able to stand on their own 2 feet. That there isn't the time for leaders to micromanage. And I think that's really important. I think being tenacious and innovation. you know a lot of skills can be taught, and we will as leaders teach those skills to people coming in. But when we interview, if we see people with that passion, that innovation and that drive, with even without the experience, that will give us that passion to be able to take that person on and develop them and take them through through a careers. Because the way that I see it is, we're the next generation are learning from us, but we're also learning from them. Who'd have thought TikTok was going to be a tool that we were going to use to sell hotels?
Yeah, times have changed,
Haven't
haven't
they
they?
just? Haven't they just? So yeah, I think that would be the thing. Don't be afraid that you haven't got the experience, but show that you've got that willingness to learn, that agility, that innovation, and that hunger and passion. And any leader will take those people and develop them onto their take them on a path of development. I personally enjoy that. That's something that I enjoy doing, is taking those new beginners. And I've had some successes. I've got team members that I've took on these journeys that are now in very good senior roles that I'm pleased to see.
Well, we've mentioned all the virtues of big brand and Hilton and all that can bring, but I think it's important to say that you talked about creativity. I think that is very often you'll get more chance. You're not in to exercise that in independence, and
Mm.
develop that. You're not confined by brand restraints in an independent, and you can kind of go after what you're interested in, and really you kind of have more of a canvas to paint a picture on, so to speak. You can get involved in more. So I think equally that's important to
Yeah,
consider that really.
yeah. Totally. And that's where and that you've hit the nail on the head, Jason, that's where the independent forum is really good, because it does give you that scope to be more creative sometimes, whereas the big brands, you are sometimes having to follow a box.
Yeah.
But again, I'm seeing the brands becoming more flexible and allowing, more creativity, and it's a lot different. It was a lot more uniformed back in the days than when I
Mm.
started. So I think, yeah, creativity is definitely, innovation is definitely a big skill that's required today.
Madeleine, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed the chat. I hope I've not regaled you too much with stories of my past, but I've really enjoyed hearing about yours, without a doubt. And
Thank
anyone
you.
wanting to get in touch with you, I presume they could do that on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
maybe, asking any
yeah.
questions.
100%. I'm open to any questions. Please do contact me. My LinkedIn profile is Madeleine Tye. So yeah, please do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And that's all we've got time for this week. Like and share the show because we're really vain and we like to have lots of fun.